Man, I'll be straight up with you guys. Going into this one, I thought that Shafkat was going to absolutely wreck Ian Garry. And I think quite a few of you would have agreed with me on that point. Vegas did too, clearly, as Rakhmonov was a more than 4-1 favorite. And it's not that I think Garry is some kind of scrub or something. I've not been insanely impressed with him, but I do see the talent there. It's more so that I thought Shafkat was an eater of worlds. I don't know, maybe it was the 18 finishes straight that made him come off as some unstoppable force of nature sent from on high to strike down the welterweight division with extreme prejudice. He had this whole mystique and hype about him that had me convinced he was the next great stoic decimation machine that our sport produces from time to time. But I do not think that anymore. He looked very much like a human being against Machado. Those first 2 rounds were a real labor. I mean, he won them, yes, but because every round has to have a winner. And that is really the only reason. Very little happened. Then he dropped the 3rd and was in serious trouble in the 5th with those submission attempts. Joe Rogan didn't outright say it, but it sounded to me like he saw the choke attempt as the only significant action in the whole fight. In other words, pride rules, Gary's walking away with the W. And he did anyway, really, at least as far as my expectations of him, especially as it relates to the skill set that Rakhmonov brings to the cage. I think that Ian Machado Garry is probably quite a bit better than I assumed, and because of the expectation that he was going to get eviscerated, he definitely scored a moral victory, and that Shavkat's win over him felt anything but definitive. This was not some mandate-setting win. It didn't even feel like one in any way but technicality. I don't feel like anybody thinks Belal dodged a bullet anymore. I think a whole bunch of us saw that fight last night and thought maybe it was for the best that Rakhmonov had to wait for that title shot. Now, does that mean I think he can't be champion? No, of course not. Let's not get silly here. I absolutely think he's at a level that could earn that gold, but am I expecting him to steamroll Belal Muhammad now? No, not at all. If you told me I had to empty my bank account on one of them, I'm going with the champ to retain. And again, this isn't some kind of fraud check moment, as so many like to say now. It's more so just realistically adjusting my expectations of a guy that looked like he was going to have a decade at the top of the sport like Fedor or something. I know I cannot be the only one who felt entirely underwhelmed by what he did in that fight last night, because the expectations were so high and he did not deliver. But you know, maybe we're the assholes, right? Maybe we as fans shouldn't crown fighters as the next big thing until they've proven themselves at the very top of the sport consistently. I think that every single time I'm wrong about a fighter, but it's a tale as old as the fandom, and while we never learn our lesson, it's also kind of the fun of this whole thing anyway. I want to see spectacular triumphs and failures, so who cares if we're wrong? And regardless of how we feel, you know, the win is still a win, even if it doesn't feel like it. But of course, he is next in line, and rightly so. He already earned his title shot before beating Garry. The in-cage confrontation after the fight, I think, likely sold absolutely no tickets, but it was clearly unplanned and off the cuff. So what were we expecting here? The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin going at it on the mic? You got a guy who was just in the crowd probably eating some popcorn, and another guy who has to be told and convey his thoughts through a translator. That segment was never going to be that compelling, but I think the fight will be, and I think those hoping for Shavkat to burn right through Belal are feeling a little nervous after that performance, and I imagine the betting line will reflect it, as Rakhmonov had opened before their originally scheduled fight as a 2-1 favorite, but I'd be shocked if by closing on their next one when it's scheduled he's anywhere near that. Believe it or not though, that was not the only fight on the card, and I think it says everything I want to say about it that we haven't even mentioned the champion who defended his title for a 3rd consecutive time as the headliner for this card until this far into the video. And it was a spectacular win. Alessandro Pantoja slept Kai Asakura via choke. There was some exciting fast-paced action in it. And how damn awesome was that Ryzen entrance? The problem was though, it felt a bit inevitable that Asakura would end up losing, and despite it being a title fight, the stakes did not feel very high. 125 is cursed with the disinterest of the fandom, regardless of the quality of the product. And I cannot help but think that Pantoja has absolutely nowhere to go from here. What's he gonna do? Beat Royval and Moreno for a 3rd time? Are we just gonna put KKF in there because it feels good but we already know the outcome? The fact that everybody is talking about DJ coming out of retirement to fight him says everything. I have no idea what the solution to this problem is, but the division feels like every few years it's on the brink of the UFC just disbanding it. On paper, this card felt like one for the hardcores. Like the casual fan would look at the lineup and be like, I'll watch college football or play Madden or just pirate the Garry fight and that's it. But the ones that are here for every apex were looking at this one like, yeah, this could end up being a banger. It was not a banger. We've already talked about why the 2 headlining fights didn't do much for us, but neither did the rest of the pay-per-view. Gunn and Volkov was fine, nothing to write home about besides the decision itself. Not to mention heavyweight is such a mess that a fight between 2 guys in the top 3 felt entirely irrelevant, because we got 2 champions, neither of which dethroned Francis Ngannou, the lineal champion of the entire goddamn sport. Anyway, Bryce Mitchell and Kron Gracie was, I think, what many expected, but were hoping it wouldn't be. Given their backgrounds, there was potential for that one, but like Kron's MMA career itself, potential was not enough, unfortunately. Doo Ho Choi versus Nate Landwehr had sneaky fight of the year contender written all over it on paper, but no, it was not remotely that. In fact, there was no fight of the night given, and that fight just turned out to be a surprisingly dominant win for Choi. The prelims did have their moments, no doubt, but yeah, this was a big old dud of a night to finish the year's big cards for the UFC. No wonder they offered it at a special holiday price of $70. Now we only have Colby and Buckley left to keep our MMA hearts warm for nearly a month. May they be as toasty as possible next weekend. Alright, now that we've gone through all the major narratives coming out of 310, let's take a look at the particulars in the form of the numbers, and then we'll hand out some awards. What do you think? The final UFC pay-per-view of 2024 had 14 fights, with 5 KO TKOs, 4 subs, and 5 decisions, for a total cage time of 2 hours, 37 minutes, and 2 seconds. Betting favorites were victorious in 10 matchups, while 4 underdogs managed to find wins. Good for them. Bryce Mitchell's slam elbow combo KO on Kron Gracie in the 3rd round was a plus 2200 play if you made it, and I doubt you did because who saw that coming? Here's a crazy stat for you. With his domination of Nate Landwehr, Doo Ho Choi earned his 2nd straight UFC victory going back to July. Those are his first back-to-back wins since Conor McGregor was the featherweight champion and had only fought Nate Diaz once. A night of firsts in that Mitchell-Gracie bout, the first ever KO finish of Bryce's career, and the first time Kron has ever been stopped in his career, all taking place on the oblate spheroid that is the Earth, earning Bryce our Saku Award. The first fight between Cyril Gane and Alexander Volkov saw no takedowns and pretty much double the significant strikes in the first 3 rounds, and that's probably because last night the big men scored 5 takedowns on 8 attempts and spent 8 minutes on the mat. In his 19-fight career, Shavkat Rakhmonov never saw a judge's scorecard until last night, and Ian Machado lost his O after 8 straight in the UFC and 15 total. And finally, the champ got the first finish of his first 4 UFC title bouts and the 4th rear naked choke finish of his UFC career, earning him our Connect 4 award. Love that game. And with that, 2024 is in the damn books for the UFC, at least in terms of events that cost $80. Max Randall, the incredible editor of this video, crushed these autopsies this year. Please show him love on his socials and check out his awesome YouTube channel. Of course, I have to thank the channel Hall of Famers as well, another vital piece of these postcard shows. Appreciate the shit out of you. If you want to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, you just gotta hit the join button and go from there. Exclusive content, behind the scenes access, highly recommend it. Like and subscribe because we're gonna be pumping these out in 2025 as well. What are your thoughts on 310? Tell me down in the comments. I love reading them. Have a great day, guys. I'm out.